Say, the child remembers to put something away. You say, oh, you put that away? Just describing what it is, you put that away. Or, when you did that, you made my job a lot easier. Or you remembered your books. No, we're not going to go home and break out the champagne because of that. You remembered your books. Not, I'm so proud of you, that's so terrific, that's so wonderful. Just describing it. You remembered to take your pencils today. Yeah, I did. That's encouragement. When kids make a contribution, they're contributory. When they put out more effort, you're really sticking with your homework tonight. Yeah, but it's so hard. I can tell. Can you just help me with this? No. My money's on you. You're going to handle it. We can do a whole meeting on homework. In fact, I have an article called Conquering the Great Homework Monster, which is like the article from last week, the same approaches, how to get homework shaped up pretty good, and we'll probably do that one day. Who had questions here?
Well, I was going to say something, because I was here last week, is with you, is kind of like just trusting that they're going to react, and you having no fear from what you're letting them do on their own.
I feel like our parents messed us up.
No, my son, I did that with my son too, and he's like very easygoing kid, but I said to him, you need to get ready. Tomorrow morning, we'll get ready when we get out of here on time. I told him, I'm walking out the door, I don't see you ready. And he jumped from that bed, he put on his clothes. Where are my shoes? Where are my shoes? I don't know, they were in your bedroom. And he found the shoes, put them on, and he was ready, and he did it all on his own.
You're doing him a great service because, it's almost like the concept of a dumb blonde. A dumb blonde can't find a way out of a paper bag. The stereotype of a dumb blonde. Mm. That when we are so helpful and so giving, in fact, I encourage all parents to just be dumb blondes. I don't have a clue. The child said, "Well, what am I supposed to do?" I don't know. Well, how am I going to get to school on time? I'm late. Well, I guess we'll take the car. Where's my shoes? I don't know. Just having no clue. You have no clue. Someone's got to pick up the ball,
They get
Someone's got to pick it up.
And then you don't have to repeat it.
Yeah.
They get it.
But this, again, patience is so important. When you're doing any kind of a behavioral change program, any kind of modification of child behavior, it involves modifying your own behavior as well. And patience is not something that I used to have a lot of. So I practice being patient. If I'm standing in line, like if I'm in Publix or something and it's a long line, or Whole Foods, and I'm sitting there taking a deep breath, I use a walking mantra that I use, which translated as it's a Buddhist saying. It's called the jewel in the heart, which means just focused on relaxation. And I practice being patient. And I would encourage people around me to, because someone says, God, I can't believe, like if you go to the mall and the store's not quite open at 10 o'clock in the morning, you see people walking in Bloomingdale's and what the hell are they doing in there? It's 2 minutes after 10, these people are going crazy. So I would tell them, I said, well, maybe this is an opportunity. And they'll look and they'll say, opportunity? I said, yeah, to practice being patient. And they'll look at me like I'm a little loony, but I like to spread words like that. It's just something I do. And I say, so I'm just going to stand here and I'll, exaggerate a bit, and I'm going to say, I'm just going to practice being patient. I'm not going to do this, But it lightens everything up, and before you know it, the door's open. So being patient in your child rearing, when you're changing, when you're identifying behaviors that you find are self-defeating, the ones you've done over and over again, expecting a different outcome. When you start to move in a different direction, when you start to become a therapeutic parent, it takes patience. It's not like a hot knife through butter. It really takes patience. And your children, they really do come around. They have to run through a whole repertoire of their stuff, that they've used over the years, even a few years, to control us, to make us believe they can't do something, to make us feel sorry for them. They may show a display of inadequacy that makes us want to just give up in disgust because, God, I just, kids do things for different reasons. Some kids do things for attention. They nag us and we're annoyed. Some kids do things for power. They want to control us and we're angry. Some kids do things for revenge. These are those other kids in the next to the last group. And we just give up in horror because you're doing such antisocial things. And some kids do things like, I'm just the schmo and I just can't do it and I don't know how. You know, one story comes to mind and then we'll end today. I used to do a lot of testing in my early days, which I don't do anymore because I don't like to do it, frankly. But there are times where I'll have kids in front of me, little kids, 6, 7, 8 years old, and so we want to do some figure drawing, you know, a house 3-person test or some kind of projective drawing, or draw your family, you know, which, you know, it's another story. So I wanted the child to draw. So I said, I want you to draw a picture of a house. And the child says, I can't draw. And I, you know, very dramatically I said, what? I can't draw. You can't draw? Can't draw. I said, wait. I said, you can't draw? Well, I can draw, but I don't draw very well. Well, I don't draw good. I'm not a good drawer. I said, oh, I said, thank God. I said, you know, you were the first person I ever met that couldn't draw. Now I understand that you can draw, but you don't do it very well. You don't do it very well. So, you know, just encouraging a child to, you know, to not throwing in with that, having expectations that they can do more. You know, before you know it, the child is drawing. And I say, you know, you're working very hard on that. You're really staying with that drawing, using that encouragement. You know, because kids, if we're not careful, they'll get us to live down to their expectations. I might say, all right, then we don't have to do the drawing because you can't draw. That would be so horrible for this child if I remove that expectation. But I want to empower these children. I empower my own child. I want to empower you the same way. That you really can do these things with a little patience and a little guidance and a little fun, because there's a lot more fun in this than you can imagine. Because you'll be chuckling to yourself, and you know, the first time you say that service has been temporarily discontinued, you're going to tell your friend, you won't believe what happened. Man. You know, I said this, and my kid looked at me like I was from Mars or something. You know, but I discontinued that service. So chances are, in the future, we'll be meeting here on a periodic basis to talk about more relevant things. I'm putting together a little something called the Parenting Papers. And it's a collection of effective thoughts for raising effective children. And I gave you some last week, the fallacy of feeling good. And I'll have another one called the curse of the extras, why extra time, extra credit, and extra help are destroying our children. You know, when there's no need for it, by the way. So. And I have one on homework as well. So they'll be made available as soon as I get my little computer cranked up again. And I think this is a good place to stop. So I hope that we're on the way to really influencing you in a positive way to just have the courage to be imperfect parents, have the courage to be therapeutic parents, and take a little time to, a little patience to start to transform some of this stuff. So we'll see you soon.
Thank you.